Edward Stone was more than just a millionaire. He was the heart and soul of his company. At 48 years old, he had built his empire from the ground up, earning the respect and admiration of everyone who worked for him. Known for his calm but firm leadership, Edward was always impeccably dressed in a sharp blue tailored suit with a matching tie that seemed to command attention wherever he went. Before we dive in, show some love with a like and drop a comment. It really helps us bring you more powerful stories like this one. Alright, let's jump right in. One late evening, as the office buzzed with the usual end-of-day activities, Edward found himself engrossed in reviewing the company's financial records. The soft glow of his computer screen illuminated his focused expression as he meticulously combed through the numbers. It was during this routine check that something caught his eye, an irregularity in the accounts that he couldn't quite explain. Intrigued and slightly concerned, Edward decided to dig deeper. As he followed the trail of discrepancies, a name kept popping up: Mark Rivera. Mark was a 32-year-old employee who had been with the company for several years. Edward had always thought of him as a hard-working and dedicated member of the team, which made the discovery all the more troubling. Determined to get to the bottom of the matter, Edward decided to stay late and observe. He dimmed the lights in his office and waited, his eyes fixed on the security cameras that monitored the accounting department. As the hours ticked by and most of the staff had gone home, Edward's patience was finally rewarded. There on the grainy screen, he saw Mark Rivera enter the empty office. The young man looked nervous, constantly glancing over his shoulder as he made his way to his desk. Edward watched in disbelief as Mark, wearing a wrinkled grey work shirt and black slacks, began to access the company's financial system. With a heavy heart, Edward witnessed Mark transfer a sum of money from the company's account to what appeared to be his personal account. The act was quick, almost practiced, but there was no mistaking what Edward had just seen. His trusted employee was stealing from the company. Anyone else might have immediately called security or the police. They might have stormed down to the office, confronted Mark in a rage, and fired him on the spot. But Edward Stone was not just anyone. As he sat there processing what he had witnessed, a different approach began to form in his mind. Taking a deep breath, Edward straightened his tie and made his way down to the accounting department. The sound of his polished shoes echoing through the empty corridors seemed to match the pounding of his heart. As he approached Mark's desk, he could see the younger man frantically trying to cover his tracks, unaware of his boss's presence. "Mark," Edward said softly, causing the employee to jump in his seat. The color drained from Mark's face as he turned to face his employer, realizing he had been caught red-handed. The tension in the air was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. Mark's eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape that didn't exist. His hands trembled as he tried to form words, but nothing came out. The guilt and desperation were evident in every line of his face, in the way his shoulders slumped in defeat. Edward, maintaining his calm demeanor, pulled up a chair and sat down next to Mark. The simple act seemed to surprise the younger man, who had been bracing himself for a very different reaction. "I think we need to talk," Edward said, his voice steady and devoid of the anger Mark had expected. What happened next would become the stuff of company legend. Instead of immediately firing Mark or calling the authorities, Edward made a choice that no one in the office could have predicted. He asked Mark to explain why he had resorted to stealing from the company. With tears in his eyes and shame evident in every word, Mark began to tell his story. He spoke of mounting medical bills for his sick mother, of the crushing weight of student loans, and of his desperate attempts to keep his head above water financially. As he talked, Edward listened intently, his expression a mixture of concern and deep thought. When Mark finished his explanation, fully expecting to be escorted out of the building by security, Edward did something extraordinary. He reached out and placed a comforting hand on Mark's shoulder. "I'm disappointed in your actions, Mark," Edward began, "but I'm more disappointed in myself and this company for not noticing that one of our own was struggling so much." Mark looked up, confusion replacing the fear in his eyes. Edward continued, "What you did was wrong and there will be consequences. But firing you or pressing charges won't solve the underlying problems that led you to this point." Instead of termination, Edward offered Mark a chance at redemption. He proposed a plan. Mark would repay every cent he had taken, undergo financial counseling, and take on additional responsibilities to earn back the trust he had broken. In return, Edward promised to review the company's benefits package, considering ways to better support employees facing personal crises. The conversation lasted well into the night, with both men emerging from the office as the first rays of dawn broke through the windows. Mark left that morning not as a disgraced ex-employee, but as a man given a second chance, one he vowed not to waste. Word of what had transpired spread quickly through the company grapevine. At first, there was disbelief. How could Edward let a thief continue working for the company? Shouldn't there be harsher punishment? But as the full story came to light, the mood began to shift. Employees gathered in small groups, discussing the events in hushed tones. Some shared their own struggles, realizing for the first time that they weren't alone in facing personal challenges. Others expressed a newfound respect for their CEO, impressed by his compassion and willingness to look beyond a single mistake. In the days that followed, Edward called a company-wide meeting. Standing before his employees, he addressed the elephant in the room head-on. He spoke about the importance of integrity, but also about the need for compassion and understanding in the workplace. He announced changes to the company's policies, introducing new support systems for employees facing financial hardships. "We are more than just a company," Edward declared, his voice resonating through the packed conference room. "We are a community, a family, and families look out for each other even when mistakes are made." The impact of Edward's decision rippled through every level of the organization. Employees who had once seen him as just another millionaire boss now viewed him in a new light. They saw a leader who valued people over profits, who understood that everyone deserves a second chance. Mark, true to his word, worked tirelessly to make amends. He not only repaid every cent he had taken, but also became an advocate for financial literacy within the company. His story, shared with permission, became a powerful reminder of the importance of seeking help before reaching a breaking point. As weeks turned into months, the company culture underwent a transformation. There was a new openness, a willingness to discuss problems before they escalated. Employee satisfaction soared, and with it, productivity. The company's reputation in the business world grew, not just for its financial success, but for its innovative approach to employee welfare. Edward Stone's decision that night didn't just change Mark's life, it changed the entire company. What could have been a story of theft and punishment became a tale of redemption and growth. It showed that true leadership isn't about wielding power, but about using that power to lift others up. In boardrooms and break rooms alike, people spoke of Edward's actions with a mix of awe and respect. He had taken a moment of crisis and turned it into an opportunity for positive change. The Millionaire CEO had shown that wealth and success didn't have to come at the cost of compassion and understanding. As the story spread beyond the company walls, it sparked conversations in other businesses about corporate culture and employee support. Edward found himself invited to speak at conferences, sharing his experience and challenging other leaders to rethink their approach to management. Years later, long after the initial shock had worn off, the impact of that night remained. The company continued to thrive, not just financially, but as a beacon of what a supportive and understanding workplace could be. And at the heart of it all was Edward Stone, the millionaire who saw beyond the bottom line and chose to invest in people. His legacy wasn't just the wealth he had accumulated or the business he had built. It was the lives he had touched, the culture he had transformed, and the example he had set for leaders everywhere. In the end, Edward Stone proved that true success isn't measured in dollars and cents, but in the positive impact we have on the lives of others. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs hope today, and of course, subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. And hey, tap the notification bell so you're the first to know when the next one drops. We've got more inspiring stories waiting for you in our playlist. Dive in, get inspired, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for being here.